On the road to Damascus, Saul of Tarsus, who we would later come to know as St. Paul, remember him? He saw a blinding light, and from it he heard the voice of Christ, who said, "Saul, why are you persecuting me?" It's a question that has been asked by Christians now for 2 millennia as they struggle for freedom against oppression. The new Syrian interim president, Ahmad Al-shara, who took control of the government after ousting Bashar al-Assad late last year, announced a new transitional cabinet of 23 people this week. They're tasked with drafting a new constitution and organizing Syria's first elections after more than a decade of civil war. A Roman Catholic and the only woman among the nearly 24 named was appointed Minister of Labor and Social Affairs. Alawite, Druze, and Kurdish minorities were also included in the mostly Sunni Arab governing body. Mr. Al-shara is a former member of Al-Qaeda in Iraq and was once in U.S. custody. Until the waning days of the Biden administration, he had a $10 million bounty on his head. Now, he's pledged to maintain a government that is more inclusive of the country's diverse ethnic and religious groups. Now, this could be a positive step for Syrian Christians, or it could be a ruse to deflect international pressure. Why does this matter? The free world relies very heavily on religious liberty. It's not enough that religious minorities are tolerated or permitted to simply exist. Like all people, they deserve to have agency and the ability to play a role in shaping the destiny of their communities and their nations. Freedom to worship and freedom of conscience are necessary for human flourishing, and therefore not the ceiling of human societal structure, but the foundation upon which that structure is built. Those values are not a destination, but a necessary first stop on the journey to the kind of empowerment that Americans believe is endowed by our Creator. The plight of Christians should not be relegated to a footnote in the larger struggles of the Middle East. It's very closely connected to the Arab-Israeli conflict, which at its core is about the religious intolerance of radical Islamists backed by Iran. Tolerating the marginalization or the killing or the abuse of one of the world's oldest Christian communities is no less horrific than the atrocities of ISIS or the Soviet liquidation of clergy or Communist China's forced organ harvesting of religious minorities. Yes, that's going on, folks. Or the sex slave trade between Communist China and Pakistan snaring Christian girls. In this period of preparation for Easter and the resurrection, Christians and all freedom-loving people must realize that whenever this ancient struggle persists anywhere, it can exist everywhere. Americans should have a greater appreciation for that simple fact after the last 4 years. These souls in far-flung places, some of which were the cradle of Christianity, are worthy of our national attention. America leading on issues of religious liberty was just not possible in the last administration, in the Biden years, because of its own attacks on religious freedom. Hundreds of vandalized churches with little to no response from the Biden White House. The FBI putting resources against pro-lifers and infiltrating Catholic churches rather than rooting out domestic terrorists and other criminals. Hundreds of college campuses infiltrated by anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protesters organized by outside agitators who were never brought to justice. President Trump's commitment to end anti-Christian bias, protect Jews from anti-Semitism, and realign the activities of law enforcement to interdict hate crimes against people and institutions of faith has given the United States the moral ammunition to advocate for these imperiled groups. Europe, characteristically, will not step up here. You know, we've grown accustomed to putting faith at arm's length in so many aspects of our lives. And it's not an American phenomenon. The left's infiltration of institutions from schools to Hollywood has created a global culture over the last several decades where God is taboo. That, fortunately, is changing, albeit slowly here, as we wake up to the fact that bending to earthly, material, and physical desires does not translate into spiritual fulfillment. So what does it all mean for our foreign policy and of other free nations willing to be courageous? It means recognizing that religious intolerance is linked to so many of the global challenges we face together as a community of nations, but particularly as we aim to ensure democracy continues to flourish globally in the face of rising authoritarianism. On this long and dangerous road to religious and political freedom, Syria's Christians have much further to travel, to be sure, to see if their inclusion is merely window dressing or a genuine move by the government toward a pluralistic society respectful of religious minorities and willing to protect them. What is certain is that America must continue to lead by example on these issues and make clear that nations who oppress religious minorities, including those in Europe, risk being left in the past as this nation works toward a stronger future. The world needs its Ananias. It needs men and women, leaders and citizens who, while they may be afraid to buck today's conventions, have the courage to take concrete steps to defend religious minorities. For Syria's Christians, one appointment is progress, but it's not a substitute for the right to life and real power. President Al-shara has a long road of his own to travel.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.